Hey, folks. Today's episode is sponsored by one of my favorite sponsors, sunsetlakesebede.com. There it is, folks. sunsetlakesebede.com. Use the code LEFTISBEST. We'll get you 20% off. You can get 20% off the amazing Good Night Oil, which guarantees that I get a good night's sleep every night. Some combination of Sebede and Sebean. They also have new gummies, new sleep gummies with melatonin, and they have changed their formulation a little bit to up that Sebean. I think that is the absolute key for sleep aids. But they also have gummies that are just Sebede. They have gummies that have ashwagandha, I can't pronounce it, mushrooms to relax. They also have some with cordyceps to help you focus. They also have some with a little bit of THC, both the Delta 9 version and the 1 milligram THC, which is legal to send through the mail. They also have Sebede coffee and Sebede fudge. They also have multiple types of tinctures, and they've got pre-rolls and buds and keef that you can mix with your other stuff. All of their products are third-party tested. They use integrated pest management. They do not use pesticides. They take care of the soil. They practice regenerative farming in coordination with the University of Vermont. They are located up in Vermont. They're sort of some former, or I guess still, Bernie bros. They big fans of the show. That's why it's Left is Best. Get you 20% off. And don't forget, these are movement partners. These guys have donated thousands of dollars to union strike funds, refugee resettlement, carceral reform. We just did $5,000 they gave to the last prisoner project. We matched them for $5,000. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Great company, great product. sunsetlakesebede.com. I have the round one here. 20% off. Left is best. Now time for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday. Tuesday, Casual Tuesday. Wednesday, Casual Hump Day. Thursday, Casual Thurs. That's what we call it. And Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, May 10th, 2024. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Brian Grimm, DC Bureau Chief at the Intercept and co-host of Counterpoints. Also on the program today, ceasefire talks end. Israel bombs Rafah as Bibi ignores Biden's ultimatum. Meanwhile, at the UN, the General Assembly votes in favor of new rights and privileges to Palestine. Trump's criminal trial continues after some stormy testimony yesterday. Yep, thank you. Senate approves FAA reauthorization with enhanced compensation to consumers for canceled flights. Prepping to impose tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles and other goods. Meanwhile, the same Biden administration is seeking a partial end to the Flores Agreement, which protects unaccompanied migrant children. Conservatives on the Supreme Court find police can seize your property and hold it indefinitely because freedom. Lastly, Ohio Attorney General has told the state's public universities that it may use a law written to determine KKK demonstrations in imposing felony charges on students who wear face coverings while protesting the war in Gaza. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, program.
Welcome, program.
I got distracted, Emma Vigeland, because someone said, "Wow, not a blue or white shirt." Okay, it's green.
It is.
It's like a sort of a faded green,
army green.
Yeah, I guess. It's a casual Friday. I am in my casual Friday wear. Apparently, striking because it's not the same blue shirt I was stuck wearing for. Yeah, I get in ruts when it comes to clothing. I can't help it.
It's okay.
Yep.
I just still now stand by again that it's difficult to be a metrosexual in the way that it was defined back in the aughts, when you have clothing ruts or you wear like the same 5 shirts every week. And
that's not true.
Yeah,
that's not true.
I don't think. I think that's
it's a snapshot in time.
And I can tell which one you're wearing because one's got a hole in the sleeve and the other one's got a marker stain on it. I mean, okay. I don't know.
Cut the feed.
Right. Exactly. We've got a lot to get to today. Also, let me just take this moment again. There are just some days I read the AM Quickie. I read the AM Quickie every day, and I will. I'm a subscriber. We put it out, but I subscribe every day. Mm-hmm. And there are just some days where I'm like, this is really good. I mean, I'd say that every day, but there are some days where I'm like, wow, this is really.
They're good writers.
If you do not subscribe to the AM Quickie, go to amquickie.com. It is free 3 days a week. If you want 5 or you want to just support the thing, which is helpful, we run it at a deficit. You can subscribe to help defray the costs. But it is really useful to give you a sense of not only some of the main stories that are going to be important that day from a, decidedly lefty, sort of jaded perspective, but also stories you just wouldn't have found anywhere else. I mean, I do this for a living, and I look around for different stories every day, and I still find stories that I wasn't aware of in the AM Quickie that are more relevant than not. But we will... so folks can head over amquickie.com. Meanwhile, this is a pretty funny story. As you know, Donald Trump his trial continues, his criminal trial. We don't know what's going to happen with that. But one of the things that has been a danger for Trump, and I think his lawyers have been able to successfully communicate this to him, is that he keeps violating his gag order. And the judge is basically like, look, we're going to charge you the $11,000, which is the top, or the other alternative is I put you in jail. But the judge doesn't want people talking about his children or his kids, the judges, or intimidating witnesses or tampering with the, jury pool. I mean, any of this. And so Donald Trump has gotten the message. And what he has brought is a one of those ventriloquist dummies with him, named well, you may know him as the
villain from Poltergeist 2.
Yes, Lex Luthor. Rick Scott is the name of his ventriloquist dummy.
We were warned at war. So that's why this is happening. Joe Biden knows and the Democrats know that he cannot win. Joe Biden cannot win this election. I'm the guy to answer any questions.
Do you believe Stormy Daniels or Donald Trump?
This is nothing about Stormy Daniels. Let's remember what this case is about. They're trying to prosecute this president for how an expense was the records were done. That's all there was. It's nothing about her.
Did Trump ask you to be here tonight?
No.
Did it have anything to do with the gag order that you being here today?
No, I'm fed up. I watched what happened to me and my company. I've watched what's happened. I've talked to business people over the years, what's happened to them when you have political persecution. And now what I've watched what President Trump has done with all these cases. This is just simply, they don't want this guy on the ballot. I mean, they've tried to kick him off the ballot in the states. Now they're trying to put him in jail. They've tried everything they can because they know they can't beat him.
Do you believe that it was a legal in-kind contribution to the Donald Trump campaign in 2016?
Let's remember what this is about. This is about they're trying to prosecute this guy for how something was recorded, and that's all it is. This is just pure political persecution.
Will you be joining Trump on the campaign trail?
All right.
It's so funny.
This is, I mean, aside from the fact that he's obviously been brought up there to be his, little ventriloquist dummy. Two things. One, you have Rick Scott saying, they tried to do this to me. Bradley, click on the link I just put there.
He knows a thing or two about
Rick Scott invoked the Fifth Amendment in hearings on his company's Medicare fraud. I think he invoked it something like 51 times. I may have that number wrong. It could be even more than that. The Fifth Amendment, so that he didn't self-incriminate himself. They had a scam for $1.7 billion. Put this headline up there, Bradley.
It's behind a paywall. We're working on it.
I'll
read it here. Rick Scott tries to rewrite history on $1.7 billion Medicare fraud controversy.
And just to be clear, you get an insight into how Rick Scott sleeps at night, despite the fact that his company had the biggest Medicare fraud case maybe in the history of the country. He's just talking about it's just how the money was recorded. In other words, it was considered a business expense instead of a campaign expense. That's what fraud is.
Right.
You're
exactly.
defrauding the government. I mean,
when you put it like that, it's like when, say, you commit vehicular manslaughter. You can't be like, I just ran over a bump in the road and I was just moving forward. I had my foot on the gas. What do you expect me to do? This is his desperate plea to be in Senate leadership, because we talked about this a bit before the show, but people will remember that he and Mitch McConnell had kind of a feud in the Senate because he came out with his tax plan, which was too obviously tilted towards the rich, or was it, I guess, cutting into Medicare and Medicaid?
To cut, Medicare and Medicaid.
Yes.
Now, this also follows Mitch McConnell blaming Rick Scott, who was head of the Senate election committee, the Republican re-election committee, for recruiting such crappy candidates. And so there was a lot of animosity between the two. But Mitch McConnell is on the way out, and
got to suck up to Trump to get anywhere in the Republican Party right now. Go kiss the ring, or go do a press conference for the guy on trial.
He's speaking for me, but not really. He's just here because he's fed up. He's fed up.
They call him Skeletor.
All these people who get caught for massive fraud. Like, literally, it's like Trump said, you want to see fraud? Here, look at the guy talking.
Right. Bernie Madoff's gonna come and do a press conference.
So much more fraud than I did.
You think I'm a fraud?
His was $1.7 billion. Mine was just $143,000. What's going on here? What are we doing?
A human fraud shield.
In a moment, we're going to talk to Ryan Grimm, DC bureau chief at the Intercept, and of course the co-host of Counterpoints. First, a couple words from our sponsor. Folks, it's getting closer to summer. None of your days are calling. Well, you can fuel yourself for those days with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals in time for summer thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved, ready to eat in just 2 minutes. That's if you put it in the microwave. I happen to heat it up on the stove, although, I mean, I just got a microwave. I don't know, maybe it was a year ago, but I'm still haven't quite gotten used to using it yet. I just never had a microwave. I don't know what to tell you about that, but nevertheless, it also takes about, 4 minutes on the stove. Folks, I'll tell you, I've done some meal plans where you've got to, cook it and this and that. That's all well and good, but why bother? If I could actually give Saul a high quality meal that he likes, and it doesn't take me any time to prepare. We had a chicken thigh with mushroom and wild rice, and he ate it. He didn't eat that much of the vegetables, but he ate the chicken and the rice. I guess rice is a vegetable, but he loves it, and very great quality. There's a huge menu. You can order tons of different things. They got like a pasta
cavatale or
something like that. I can't remember. But with like a pork ragu. They've got all sorts of things. They got breakfast. They got add-ons. Want to thank Factor for supporting the Majority Report. You can make today the day you kickstart a new healthy routine. What are you waiting for? Head to factormeals.com/majority50 and use code majority50. That's a majority 50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week. You're always going to have new flavors to explore. They update it all the time. You can choose from 6 menu preferences. One that helps you manage calories, ones that maximize your protein intake, one that allows you to avoid meat, or one simply eat well balanced. From breakfast to dessert, you can stay fueled with easy, nutritious options. You can treat yourself to restaurant quality meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and blackened salmon. Shrimp is fantastic. That is also a fan favorite in our house. Because this all likes to eat shrimp. Factor meals are ready in 2 minutes. There's no shopping. There's no prepping. There's no cooking or cleaning up. Head to factormeals.com/majority50, majority50, and use the code majority50, again, number 5 and 0, to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code majority50 at factormeals.com/majority50 to get 50% off your first box, 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. We will put the link in the podcast and YouTube descriptions and at majority.fm. And also sponsoring today's program is one of the things I'm doing to cut down on my use of plastic. And now, also my ingestion of plastic. Did you know that you are eating and drinking roughly a credit card's worth of plastic a week because of the film around your pods that you put into the dishwasher is actually plastic? Yes. It's contaminating our water supply, generating hundreds of microplastics that we end up ingesting. Blueland set out to do something about it. Eliminate the need for single-use plastic in the products we reach for the most. Blueland is on a mission to eliminate single-use plastic by reinventing cleaning essentials to be better for you and the planet with the same powerful clean you're used to. Blueland uses no single-use plastic in any component, from bottles to tablets and wrappers to shipping. Their tablet packaging is fully compostable. Blueland products are effective and affordable. I use these every day. Dishwasher tablets. They're proven to perform on baked on burnt stains. No rinse aid is needed. They come in little tablets like this, the size of a pod, but they're, like sort of pressed powder,
Right.
if you will.
And they come in this like sleek container too, right? It looks nice.
Nice little like metal tin. Put that under your sink. In addition to it being smaller than that big jug of plastic that you got to buy, or not having the plastic on your plates from the pods, super easy. They send you packages of refills in these big paper bags. Also, they have color-coded spray bottles. They have the window, bathroom, and everything spray. And those come in little tablets. The tablets cost, I don't know, like $2 a tablet. I can't remember exactly, but it's the refills are super cheap. Drop the tablet in, fill it up with water, shake, boom, you're off to the races. You don't have to keep buying plastic over and over again. You can get even more savings by buying bulk refills or setting up a subscription. Their subscriptions are customizable and convenient, so you never run out of your most used products. Blueland is trusted in over 1 million homes, like I say, including mine. To celebrate Earth Month and Blueland's 5th anniversary, Blueland brought back all the fan-favorite hand soap scents from the last 5 years into one best-smelling limited edition collection. Pretty Earthy, Lily Mint, Honeysuckle Dew, Strawberry Rhubarb, Jasmine Moss. Take your pick and say goodbye to single-use plastic. Or you can go with my favorite, unscented. Blueland has a special offer for listeners right now. Get 15% off your first order by going to blueland.com/majority. You don't want to miss this. Blueland.com/majority for 15% off. That's blueland.com/majority, 15% off. All of those descriptions will be in the podcast and YouTube descriptions. Also, a reminder, it's your support that makes the show possible. You can become a member by going to jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you get the free show, free of commercials. All right, quick break. When we come back, Ryan Grimm. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigland on the Majority Report on the phone because apparently Grandpa doesn't know how to work a computer. Ryan Grimm.
I may or may not have left my laptop out in the rain last night.
Oh my gosh. Did you have a drink or something?
I don't know what was going on.
Oh, that means yes.
Out there. I'm blaming my kids.
Yes. I mean, look, it's nice out, right? We gotta enjoy the great outdoors.
Couldn't have been me.
But although I heard it was inclement weather in DC, which was part of why Christie Noem canceled her book tour, apparently.
She didn't want to be here for the drizzle overnight.
That's what she said. That was her explanation for canceling arguably the most disastrous book tour in the history of book tours.
Well,
is it moving? No, that would be Naomi Wolf, right?
Maybe.
That was a pretty rough book tour. But this one, as a political book tour, this is pretty bad. Let's just start off with this just for, it's Friday. And then we'll get into the more sort of depressing news of the week. But let's just start off with this. This is Christie Noem on just earlier this week on with Stuart Varney. This is just before she canceled her book tour. And I think you get the reason why she did that because it wasn't going very well. And again, she's only going on right-wing shows. So this is theoretically like her people. And she could not get out from under her bragging about shooting of a dog. Just getting an IM from Snarkorsky, who says there's no snow in South Dakota to keep Christie Noem from traveling. She's telling toddler level lies now.
I know, it's hilarious.
Here's this clip.
Still think that you are in line to be Trump's vice president?
No, it's up to Donald Trump. He's the only person who will decide this. He's the only person who will decide. And yes, I do speak to him.
May I ask what he said to you about being vice president?
I never tell anybody my personal conversations with
Did the dog story
President
come up
Trump.
in your conversation with
I talk to President Trump all the time.
About the dog?
About a lot of things. And right now, I tell you what, he is being persecuted in a political witch hunt in this court case. So I'm proud of him about how tough he is and how well he is doing.
Did you bring up
the
dog?
Yes, enough, Stuart.
Did you
this
bring
interview
up the dog
is ridiculous, what you were doing right now.
So
you need to stop. It is.
Okay.
It is.
We'll
Let's
stop.
talk about some real topics that Americans care about.
I'm afraid we're out of time.
Oh, well, of course we are.
We do thank you for being with us. Right. I know I pressed hard, but that's what people are talking about to this day.
Yeah.
Governor Noem, thanks for joining us.
Thank
we
you.
appreciate it.
You bet.
We'll be back in just a moment with the opening bell. Still think that you are in line.
Okay. We got Ryan Grimm on the phone here. Ryan, is that one of the most defeated moments you've ever seen of a politician? That was just amazing to me.
Yeah, like, I'm already dead. You need to stop.
Right.
It was like the already dead meme. Just absolutely brutal. And she read. I read my own audiobook for the Squad that came out in December, and I found errors in it as I did that, and we were able to fix them in the ebook, and then they got fixed in the next printing. Nothing as major as oh shoot, did I say that I met Kim Jong-un? I didn't actually do that, but the point is that she read that and did
twice.
Not fix
it's in the book twice, apparently.
Right, and she's like, when this was brought to my attention, we fixed it. Well, it was, even if you didn't write it or read what your ghostwriter wrote, you read it out loud into a microphone. And that's besides the whole question of the dog. My conspiracy theory with the dog is that it never even happened, and Corey Lewandowski talked her into putting it in there because he told her that like Trump hates dogs.
That was Sam's theory, Ryan. Ryan, that was Sam's theory.
Sam, we are brilliant conspiracy-minded analysts here.
Well, I would even go further on that. It totally backfired. I'm also not convinced that maybe she was on one of these trips with the president when he went with Trump when he went to the DMZ, and it was just supposed to be hush hush. And
I was wondering about that too.
Maybe she was traveling with Corey Lewandowski. And it came out, and she's like, "Oh, I wasn't supposed to tell the story."
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
that was classified that me and Corey went over there. Yeah.
that's what it sort of sounds.
Or something.
It sounds like sometimes. Usually, that's like what something like that is. It seems to me, because how do you just blatantly write, "I met Kim Jong-un," and you hadn't ever? It's just weird.
Right, because also it's like a who cares thing too. It's like there's no real points earned
Right.
among the Republican electorate because you like had this encounter with Kim Jong-un. Although he is, like,
nobody would have read
one
the
of
book
Trump's
and go
best
like,
friends, apparently. So
she never met Kim Jong-un and never stared down that little tyrant. Like, so.
Well, I think she wanted to basically talk about how she was a tough Sunday school teacher or Christian school, like working backwards from the joke about calling the kids little tyrants. And then she decided, I've been to South Korea. It's good enough.
maybe she did meet him, and we're just not allowed to know. And she she told her ghostwriter about it, and the ghostwriter was like, "Oh, this is good. I'll slip this in here."
It's a good theory.
And then Noem is reading it. She's like, maybe this will be okay.
Well, and then Corey reads about it in the paper and goes, "What are you doing? That was a secret. We weren't allowed to tell that we took you." That's my guess, but because then she keeps going like, "Well, I was in ag policy for 30 years." Okay, strange, but all right.
Yeah.
Let's move on to more serious things. Though I guess like Christie Noem, if you have her in the VP pool, it seems like you can cross her off of that one. But we're not that far from the Republican National Committee, and so convention, I should say. So I don't know. We may even know before then, but we're going to know soon enough. But let's talk about what happened this week. The big story, of course, is President Biden saying that he was going to cut off offensive weapons, and if Israel goes full on into Rafah. Now there's discrepancies and wiggle room and weasel wordy, when it comes to like both on the weapon side and on the Rafah side. But how big of a deal do you think this is?
I think it's a huge deal. I mean, I think I have to remind myself that I'm in something of a bubble on these questions, because from my perspective, I see it and I think, well, you already sent them all the weapons they need to completely flatten Rafah. This is at the very 11th hour. It screams too little, too late. But from outside of that bubble, there is just an absolute, complete meltdown going on kind of in AIPAC world right now, where they see this as a potential hinge moment in the history of the U.S.-Israel relationship.
Yep.
Because you couldn't get more than a few dozen Democrats to sign legislation that would, restrict money from going to Israeli units that were, that had been found to be abusing children in detention. Like they narrowed it down to like the most palatable legislation that they could possibly think of, and would have Betty McCollum, an inoffensive member of Congress, sponsor it, and even that would only get a couple dozen Democrats signing it every year. And so to have the President of the United States, under any circumstances, putting any conditions on anything whatsoever, AIPAC sees as a break in the dam.
Right.
I think AIPAC knows that it has artificial power. Like it's really holding up its power with an enormous amount of money and influence it has over members of Congress, but that there's not much behind it, and that if it breaks, the whole thing could crumble. So I think that's why they really don't want to see any change in policy whatsoever, because I think they worry about a real snowball effect.
And I just want to be clear, that legislation you're talking about, this is not the determination of, the UN or some other. We're talking about U.S. determination of what these Israeli units had done. And so I just want to make that clear. This is the biggest ally, the most reflexive ally of Israel in the world, in an administration, at least in terms of democratic administrations, could not be more pro-Israel. A guy who supposedly from Menachem Begin's standpoint was a little bit too gung-ho. And
too crazy.
And it's this administration that found that information about or I should say, has acknowledged that information about those units. But I just want to make that point absolutely clear because as this information travels. But this point about AIPAC, I think, is really fascinating because I've been saying for a long time, I think Joe Biden is going to be, we're never going to have another Democratic president who is going to be this sort of reflexively, unconditionally pro-Israel. And the fact that even he has to move back, because what you're saying, I think, is it is a function of U.S. public sentiment. And because AIPAC has built its power almost exclusively on its ability to threaten politicians with spending against it or give money to them, there is no constituency that can rebuild their power once that allure is gone. And there's a sense that people can compete with that. And like whether it's Summer Lee, doing it also sort of like takes a little sort of a peg out of the mystique. That's what they're facing.
Yes, I think that's exactly right. That exactly. If they suffer a defeat, it's very hard for them to come back from that, and then they wind up being a Republican organization, sort of like the way that the NRA became, and that means that
or Kufi for that matter.
Right.
And so that means if Republicans get in power, then they've got some sway. If Democrats are in power, then they're struggling. But at the same time, that means they're linking up with a Republican Party that is increasingly, seriously anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
And, has these like underlying white nationalist tendencies that it makes for a very difficult alliance. And you're seeing that play out in the kind of, alt-right cauldrons out there on the internet, where you have an enormous amount of kind of hostility to Israel that, it often gets conflated on the left as anti-Semitism, but on the right, there's a significant amount of it that is. And even the kind of pro-Semitism or whatever you'd call it from the kind of Christian evangelical wing is really gross too. Like, the like, what do they call it? Displacementism or whatever. Like the Mike Johnson idea that the reason that the Christians are supporting Israel has something to do with like the reckoning and, Christ coming back and all that. Like that's a dicey coalition to put together. Like
and you can't square it with, you need, in terms of public sentiment, as you guys are saying, how can you make charges of anti-Semitism when that kind of convergence into it being a Republican organization is complete? Because, when you actually talk to, say, Jewish voters or Jewish Americans, they are not Republicans. They are overwhelmingly Democrat. And so then I think they lose control of the narrative if they lose the liberal Zionists.
Yes, they'll be at sea in a Republican coalition. Like you see, some of the leading figures in AIPAC, are comfortable. Sheldon Adelson is comfortable on the right. The ones who have kind of drifted right along with Israel's broad politics over the last 20 years have gotten increasingly comfortable within the Republican Party. But that's not, like you said, that's not the supermajority of American Jewish voters who are still progressive Democrats.
Right.
The interesting dynamic is, because Netanyahu himself in Israel has made political alliances with some of the worst right-wing players in Europe over the past decade and a half or so. Orban and other and right wing groups, and I think there was an Israeli
Putin.
There was a right wing. There was an Israeli. I want to say general. I cannot remember the quote verbatim, but it was when he was asked, like, what about aligning with all of these Christian nationalists? In America, their whole idea is that 2/3 of the Jews go up to hellfire. Only a third gets to sit on the right hand side of God. That's I'm just in case you're wondering. That's where I'm going. And the general's perspective was basically like, well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. In other words, we'll take the support. And if the rapture happens and we end up going the wrong direction, all right, we'll deal with it then. But
I mean, that isn't that how all of us think about it?
I mean, I have eczema. I've talked about this many times, and so hellfire is just. I get like that type of heat. It's just not good for my skin. So
dry heat.
I've made it clear. I want to sit on the right hand side of God, but the interesting thing is that in this country, once you get outside of the Kufi, bubble, as it were, and we're starting to see, from our vantage, we see it play out with like the Daily Wire and, and Charlie Kirk and Steven Crowder and Tucker Carlson. We see these through a media lens. But you can see it really is a tough balancing act to maintain because in moments like this, because there is anti-Semitism there, and it makes it much harder for them to sort of maintain the constituencies that they want to maintain in this country. So I guess it remains to be seen. But how much now at this point, when you've got like Israeli officials, now charging that Joe Biden is a Hamas lover, does he fully cut bait politically? I mean, or let me ask you this. Do you think this move is because he is aware and he's been getting pressure from Democratic lawmakers and is aware, whether it's the student protests or whether it's just a broad sentiment or what?
Well, you did see Kirby, sort of trying to walk back what Biden was saying. So, continuing to muddle it. But Biden, certainly has in the past, when he was vice president, he was always talking about foreign policy in terms of its effect on domestic politics. Does feel like there's a bit of an Israel exception to that, where he has been such a committed ideologue. My sense is that what he's hearing from his, intelligence and military advisors is just how cataclysmic, a full-on invasion of Rafah would be, and he just can't imagine kind of allowing that to happen.
And Brian, could you elaborate on that point a little? Because I find it interesting that Burns and the CIA have been leading these negotiations with the Hamas intermediaries. And I think we've talked about this potential break with the people that are invested, like, how Lloyd Austin sounded different than Blinken or Biden. The defense, the people who are mostly invested in maintaining American hegemony and legitimacy in the region are not going to be on the same page as Biden right now, because we're at a point where this is an immense threat to American hegemony, this continued unconditional support for Israel. Like, do you see that shift beginning to happen because of Burns's involvement in the negotiations versus like Biden and the Blinken-led State Department?
Yeah, it is interesting that, Burns and Austin represent the factions of the government that have to deal more closely with reality.
Right.
They're on the ground, and the State Department and the president and others can deal more in the realm of like big thoughts and propaganda and hopes and dreams, and can continue talking about normalizing things, and we're making progress, and they've got concerns and thoughts. And it's been interesting. There hasn't been much reporting in the U.S. about Burns's role over there, but the Mideast press has been very clear that, Burns is the CIA director, has been playing this really leading role in the negotiations. Reporting there says that Burns himself, signed off on the ceasefire deal that Hamas accepted, and it was tweaked from what Israel had originally put forward, and people have focused on those tweaks. But after Hamas tweaked it, Burns and Egypt and Qatar and everybody else were like, okay, this is close enough. We can work with this. Now we're gonna. But then there was no diplomatic pressure put on Israel to accept the deal. It was just they walked away from it, and the State Department and Biden just kind of threw their hands up and said that's a shame, but they better not go into Rafah. So you do have this split going on, and it did seem like Burns kind of got thrown overboard in those talks, because there was a world in which Biden and Blinken could have leaned much more heavily and said, no, like this is the deal, like we're done, like this is over, like we approved this, and then Hamas accepted it, and now you're going to accept it. Like that's the United States has that power to do that. It was a decision on their part not to use it, and the payback they'll get from that is Netanyahu continuing to ignore Biden and saying he's going to go in and do this anyway. It sounds like there's just utterly relentless bombing of Rafah ongoing, but at the same time, this is something that Burns knows as well. Like the IDF is suffering just extraordinary losses. This morning and yesterday, like going into these more densely populated areas is not just going to lead to enormous casualties among Palestinian civilians, but it pushes a lot of these IDF soldiers into death traps. And Biden is aware of that. Netanyahu must be aware of it, unless he's just completely blinded at this point by his political trap that he's got himself stuck in with the corruption charges and everything else. But yeah, I think reality is really pushing back against what Netanyahu is trying to do here.
You get the sense that Burns and I can't believe, like on some level, like the most sincere seeker of peace in this is the CIA chief, but you get the sense that Burns is like this has been a complete farce from day one. Like, I mean, I think he probably realizes like there was never a deal ever that was ever going to be made. All of this was sort of preordained, and they've been relying on the chance that maybe they could just demand too much of Hamas, and there's still no reason to believe that Israel is going to be going to eliminate Hamas. Regardless, they could flatten Rafah. They're not going to eliminate Hamas, and so it's just a question of how much they're going to inflict. The other thing that I think is we don't have great reporting on this, but there's and we're going to speak to someone who has family in Gaza on Tuesday, who's been getting regular updates from there, but. Starting to hear and this makes sense. The Israelis control the Rafah border crossing for the first time, and in this conflict, anyway, since they've for the past 15 years, and there's no reason to believe that they're letting in fuel or water.
The UN says they're not. The UN has been saying that there hasn't been any new aid that's come through the Rafah crossing since Sunday, and that the hospitals in Rafah now are running out of fuel.
And if the hospitals are running out of fuel, then there's no way to get water around at this point, from aid trucks. And, we're going to have this is like a Warsaw Ghetto type of situation. essentially, right? I mean,
yes, and even the State Department was saying, been saying the last couple of days that, with Kerem Shalom also shut down, they reopened it but didn't actually move anything through. So what does reopening really mean there? Without fuel, all the aid, any aid that can get in, as even Matt Miller at the State Department pointed out, it can't be distributed. You can't get it to people. And this idea that they're going to move people as well, they 100,000 people, they told them to move to this like rubble-strewn area that has, no bathrooms, nowhere to eat, no access to drinking water, no nothing. Just like, oh, here's an area, go here, and there are some tents there.
Also, how do you get there? I got a report from that family that we've been in touch with in Gaza 3 days ago that they wanted to leave Rafah, but they have no fuel. There's no mechanism in which for them to go anywhere.
Right. They just want like people to walk like they did from Gaza City to Khan Yunis, or like those
images,
many mile long walks.
Right. I mean, this is those images of people at the beginning of this walking down on foot by the thousands, I mean, remain in my mind as like we're talking about the second Nakba, but it's more than that, as you're saying. I mean, like, what do you think we're talking about here? I in terms of death tolls, Ryan, like I saw, I think it was maybe not Kirby, the other Matt Miller was saying, that the rate of death has decreased at this latest press conference, and they've been taking more precautions. My sense is, and I can't stop making this point because it just puts a pit in my stomach, that when we find out the true death tolls, it's going to be staggering.
Right, because if you think about everyone that you know in your life, and we're on the younger side still. Sam and I not so much, but you are. But think about your older relatives, and even the ones our age. You think of people who are not perfectly healthy, who have some precondition or other, some disease they're dealing with, whether it's something totally manageable like diabetes, or something treatable, like we were talking to some oncologists recently, or not talking to a friend who just recovered from cancer recently, but only because he was able to get treatment. And so you stack on top of it. If you think about all the people in your life and you ask yourself how many of those would be able to survive basically living outdoors with like 1 to 3 liters of water a day for all uses, drinking, hygiene, cooking, eating nothing but a little bit of rice or bread that you can get your hands on. How long would those people be able to survive? A lot of people that I know in my life would not make it. And so I think, to your point, lots of people are dying that way. And we'll find out died that way through disease, malnutrition, rather than underneath rubble.
But even that,
of course, many tens of thousands,
right,
too.
Right, even that, I mean, right. that there will be continued effects, but even that, I think, like with the discovery of these mass graves, the 35,000 death toll is just the people they've been able to identify as the dead, basically.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
I just want to turn to some of the politics around this. You said that the AIPAC world is freaking out a little bit because they worry that Biden has crossed some threshold where the idea of holding Israel to account, regardless of the fact that it's 11th hour and may not have any direct implications on Israel's ability, at least to create more death and destruction in Rafah, but just to sort of the act of it sets a precedent. Obama had done that a little bit, but not as sort of like publicly, and I think as there wasn't as much scrutiny as going on at that time. Does that change their plan, AIPAC's? Do you think, in their targeting people like Bowman and Cori Bush. I mean, they're going to target some of these Justice Democrats. Do you think it changes their plan, or does it make it more them more determined to show that they can take some people out?
I think it makes them more determined. I think you're going to see my colleague Akil Lacey had a piece saying that AIPAC's looking at spending 20 to 25 million against Bowman. It's a really expensive media market, and it's going to go hard again. And they're all out. It's one of the only races where they're okay. They're fine to make it about. Like every other race, they pretend it's about something else. This one, they're going to hit him on everything. They're going to hit him on fire alarm and 9/11 stuff, but they're also openly going after him. I've been doing reporting, and I'll have another story out maybe within the hour about this Portland congressional race. I don't know if you followed this. Yes. Pramila Jayapal's sister, Multnomah County Commissioner Sushila Jayapal, was the front runner for most of this race to replace Earl Blumenauer, and it's Portland, so you can't really come in, with AIPAC dropping millions of dollars against somebody and for another candidate. So last week I reported that they were funneling their money kind of through this 314 Action, which is a super PAC that has been set up over the last several years to support scientists running for office and to support a pro-science agenda. But it was actually AIPAC money that was flowing into this super PAC. And then there was another one set up called Americans for Responsive Government. And they popped it up on April 1st, which is the day after the filing deadline ends. And so they don't have to disclose donors until May 20th. And the election is on May 21st. And with mail-in voting, most people will already have voted by then. The news story I'll have out today is I talked to somebody who works for 314 Action, who straight up confirmed, yes, we did this through AIPAC, and we're going to be going after Bush, Cori Bush, pretty soon. But they're going to set up a slightly different super PAC there to go after Bush now that there's more heat on them. Just this morning, I got an AIPAC donor on the phone because the candidate herself had to release this 48-hour report that showed she had a massive fundraiser on Tuesday with like 80 people that gave, and almost all of them, if you search their history, they gave to AIPAC as well. So it was an AIPAC fundraiser. I called this woman up who gave $3,300, the max amount, on Tuesday. And I said, were you at this fundraiser? She's like, no, I wasn't at the fundraiser, and I don't know who you're talking about. I didn't give to this woman. I was like, well, you're listed in FEC as, giving her a maximum contribution. And she's like, oh, well, I give all my money through AIPAC. Whatever AIPAC tells me to do, I just give them. I just max out to them.
Wow.
So this progressive Democrat's ability to deny that she's getting AIPAC support is over. But she's got millions of dollars coming in at the very last minute. And so it may be too late. And it may be too late for voters to find out. And so, she may, have pulled it off, by waiting until the very end.
This is Jayapal's opponent.
Of money to come in. Right. And so, and from what I'm hearing, like the main reason they're going after her is that she's Jayapal's sister. Like it's like partly it's personal in a lot of ways. Like AIPAC really hates Pramila Jayapal, because she can't really be marginalized like some of the squad members.
Right.
And she's chair of the Progressive Caucus, which can wield significant power. So in some ways, it's more dangerous to them.
It really does making, sort of defending these candidates to the extent that they can be defended that much more important, because the best way, AIPAC's never going to run out of money, but it's going to be a little bit harder if they go back to these donors and say, yeah, we were 0 for 4, or whatever it is, right, or 0 for 5 or 0 for 6. They may, and they may see they need to deploy this more like in a different way if both, if Biden, which is really sort of like the ballast, right? I'm sure you have people who are a little bit more AIPAC-y in Congress, but it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see if this happens. And, folks, if you're in Portland, obviously, talk to your friends. The primaries, particularly this go around, because there's no presidential candidate on the ballot, are going to be won by a small amount of people. Lastly, how much do you think this is hurting Biden in either direction politically? Because, I'm looking at there was a rash of polls that came out last week that say young people are upset with Biden, but it's not necessarily what they're going to vote on in a broad sense. And I think, my sense is that the Biden people are looking at the demographics and feel they can lose more young people than they did in 2020, only because the raw number of those young people is so huge. And so, if they won 35% last time, they can afford in their mind to lose, to win 57-43 just because of how many numbers there are. And, we are in a, this is the first general election that is going to be post sort of the vast majority of deaths of COVID. We still have people dying. And presumably, statistically speaking, they're more Trump voters than Biden voters. But do you think that there's a first order problem for Biden with this? And B, my theory has been that activists tend to be the most sensitive to this issue because they follow the news the most. And instead of get out the vote for Biden, they're less than enthused because they're in this sort of moral quandary.
That is the big problem, because the way that Trump was beaten in 2018 and 2020 and 2022 after Roe v. Wade was from an enormous amount of enthusiasm kind of against him. If that is dampened by this, then that has a disproportionate impact. Because right, like you said, those are the people that are talking to their social circle. Those are the people that are knocking on doors, making phone calls. We'll find out, how much any of that matters. 2020 was an interesting test case in the sense that Democrats basically did zero door knocking because they were still, masking and social distancing in November 2020, whereas Republicans had abandoned that. And so they were door knocking and canvassing and doing all that. And it probably made it closer. Like the studies do suggest there was definitely some marginal change as a result of that. So we might just have the same thing. There was barely any door knockers. Groups are saying that they're paying them a lot more to hire people to door knock and canvass than they were in the past, which means you can do less of it for the money that you've got. But people really don't like Trump. So that is what Democrats are banking on, and it may end up being enough. It's hard to say. Yeah, it's hard to say, but I mean, I think it is pretty clear. I think that there is, to the extent that there are, the first order votes are as to what's going on is not as much of an issue as the sort of the second order problem that they are the activists, and just also it's stepping on other stories, right? I've made this point over and over again about the pause on the liquid natural gas export facilities. It's one of the biggest climate successes that I think we've ever seen in some respects in terms of one thing. And it didn't get much play because the people who would otherwise be excited about it, talk about it and, be promoting and trying to reward Biden because of it are, having to see the U.S. support, genocide, ethnic cleansing, whatever it is you want to call it, doesn't matter. The killing of tens of thousands.
I mean, I think that that is I don't know how
it really does make it hard to celebrate stuff. Yeah, for sure. You got lots of good student loan stuff that they keep rolling out.
Yep.
They reschedule marijuana, but nobody wants.
Well, we were on track to talk about, is Biden, I was born in 1994, right? Is Biden the best president of my lifetime? Was the conversation that was happening prior to October 7th, because he'd withdrawn from Afghanistan, because of Lena Khan, the antitrust, because of the student debt cancellation efforts, what have you, right? I mean, it's hard to imagine a Democratic president handling this worse. Actually, my fiance asked me this the other night. He said, do you think Bill Clinton would have been worse? And I'm like, I don't think so. I know Obama wouldn't have been worse. But this literally, he's arguably the worst suited president for this particular moment, because, to be honest, he has a very hard time acknowledging his deep-seated Islamophobia and these kind of recalcitrant racist attitudes you see a lot of boomers have when it comes to Israel. But Biden is just, I mean, we know he's ideological. It's just, it also seems like a political miscalculation to me, but it's hard to say.
Yeah, the Golda Meir conversation is still fresh in his mind.
Right.
Yes, that she really made
fresher than anything that happened the last year.
That's
exactly.
Undoubtedly, that's the way it works. Believe me, I'm getting to that age, and I can't remember what happened earlier this week, but I do remember my favorite sled I had as a child. Ryan Grimm.
What color was it?
It was red. It was red. Ryan Grimm. It had the runners. I mean, it is
like the one. Yeah. Sounds like it's out of
Rosebud,
and it was called Rosebud. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ryan Grimm, always a pleasure. Thank you for taking a break from your Learning Annex class. I know you're taking this one on how to operate computers. These newfangled computers, and so I really appreciate your taking the time to talk to us.
My pleasure, always.
All right, see you, Ryan. Bye.
Yeah. All right, folks. I think that does it for us. Here's a lawful waffle on the IM. Sam, please don't dismiss the importance of using the terms genocide and ethnic cleansing. This is really important to Emma and Matt, for you guys to be the #1 anti-Israel channel on YouTube. Please consider their careers here. The idea that it is helpful, that it's helpful to our careers to do this is rather blinkered. I mean, laughable. It just is.
There are literally people who are getting blacklisted from jobs now for protesting for Palestinians. This is.
I mean, that's not. That's frankly more of a concern for Emma and Matt. They're young people. I am sailing into the sunset. I'm sunsetting these days. But the point is just it's not good for numbers. If you want to compare. Channels that avoid this topic or talk about it in other ways. You want to talk about their numbers. I mean, it's just absurd. You can address the merits of what we say and disagree. You can defend the killing, and more often than not, that ends up being like a denial of the numbers are not real, or nobody's starving, or it's fine, or it's
genocide
deserved,
denial,
or it's not genocide because people have babies, and whatever it is. But it's easily demonstrable that our coverage inhibits our the growth of our channel, the membership. I mean, that's just, I don't know what else to tell you.
I'm going to be real here. Denying it's a genocide at this moment, is it just because it's happening in the present that it doesn't get the same vitriol that it would be to be, say, someone who denies the Armenian genocide, or someone who denies the Holocaust, or somebody who denies the genocide of Indigenous Americans and First Nation people, or someone that denies the genocide in Guatemala. Why is it different? It's not. In fact, it's even more urgent right now. So but there are a lot of career consequences for people. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I'm setting myself up for. I'm kind of set here. So regardless, the comment, if you want to talk about the merits of it, that's fine with me. But the reason I think it's important to say the word is because the reason we have these identifiers and the reason we're supposedly moving on, genocide is the highest crime a state can commit, is so that we have like a public education so we can stop it in real time, as opposed to being able to look back and be like, oh, I would have been on the right side. So that's my reading of that. But
just a reminder, it's your support. Well, not all of you. It's your support that keeps this show going. You can help us by becoming a sustaining member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you not only get the fun half, you get the free half free of commercials, you get to IM us, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You're going to get a discount on that book that I probably will never, ever do. No, I'll do it, but I mean, it's going to take some time. Also, don't forget, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code Majority, get 10% off. We have merch, 20-year anniversary merch. Special. Check it out.
Yeah, there we go.
Works as a drink. But... works in holding drinks as well. Emma, ESPN, what the Celtics?
Yeah, I mean, interesting. I'm intrigued by that game last night. Donovan Mitchell went off, but yeah, I mean, on Monday we will be breaking down all of the developments in the NBA and NHL. I'm tired. Like I don't understand why they don't do 3-day breaks in between, or 2-day breaks in between games. I had the Rangers Sunday, the Knicks Monday, the Rangers Tuesday, the Knicks Wednesday, the Rangers last night. Like, I need a mental break from the anxiety, and yet it's not coming, although they're doing pretty well, so I shouldn't complain. Anyway, youtube.com/ESPN show. And Matt is not in today, so check out Left Reckoning. I know that he spoke to Waz about the NBA, and they should have other things coming up to start next week.
646-257-3920. We'll take calls today. See you in the fun half. 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now, and I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now, and I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now, but I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow. What? What is that going on? It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second.
The Majority Report.
Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt.
What is up, everyone?
Nomi Key.
You did it. Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Bradley, you want to say hello?
Sorry to disappoint everyone. I'm just a random guy.
It's all the boys today.
Fundamentally false.
No, I'm sorry. Women's...
Stop talking for a second and let me finish.
Where is this coming from, dude?
But dude, you want to smoke this 7A?
Yes.
Hi, me? Is it?
Yes.
Is this me?
Is it me?
It is you.
Is this me? Hello, is this me?
I think it is you. Who is you? No sound. Every single freaking day. What's on your mind?
Sports.
We can discuss free markets and we can discuss capitalism.
I'm gonna go start life.
Libertarians. They're so stupid, though.
Common sense says, of course.
Gobbledygook.
We fucking nailed him.
So what's 79 plus 21?
Challenge Matt.
I'm positively quivering.
I believe 96, I want to say.
857-210-35. 501. 1/2. 3/8.
9/11, for instance.
$3,400. $1,900.
654 $3 trillion sold. It's a zero-sum game.
Actually, you're making me think less of it.
But let me say this. Poop.
You call it satire. Sam goes, it's satire.
On top of it all, my favorite part about you is just like every day, all day, like everything you do.
Without a doubt. Hey, buddy, we see you. All right, folks.
It's just the week being weeded out, obviously.
Yeah, sun's out, guns out. I don't know.
But you should know.
People just don't like to entertain ideas anymore.
I have a question. Who cares?
Our chat is enabled, folks.
I love it.
I do love that.
Look, gotta jump. Gotta be quick. I gotta jump.
I'm losing it, bro.
2 o'clock. We're already late, and the guy's being a dick. So screw him. Sent to a gulag?
Outrageous.
Like, what is wrong with you?
Love you, bye.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Back.
We are back, ladies and gentlemen. It is Friday afternoon. Fun half. Super fun half. It's like the uber fun half of the week. Friday afternoon. Number 646-257-3920. 646-257-3920 is the number. Dan from SoCal. Maybe it's just me, but the most comforting and reasonable explanation for the current state of American politics is that brainworms have infested the political elite and are now being controlled by parasites feeding off of the gray matter of the elite. Interesting. It could be. Let's go to the phones. Calling from an 808 area code. Who's this? Where